Good afternoon, everybody. I am back with the next chapters. We will read 5 and 6 today. Chapter 5, The Curious Cure-All. The best place to find pixies on the mountain or in the mines where we used to dig for gold. I walked through the ruins of the village, almost abandoned houses, the crumbling mill, the vacant square. All of it used to be full of people, loud, bustling, but not anymore. The only sound was the whisper of the wind scattering dust and leaves. We're alone on the mountain, which was fine by me. Granny was all I needed. The mine could hardly be called a mine anymore. Most of the shafts had collapsed, so you couldn't even walk in them. Abandoned carts, rusty pickaxes were strewn across the ground. Someone had left a hat. It was caked with dust and moldy from rain. I saw no pixies, probably because there was no gold. Pixies love gold. They sense it from miles away and go crazy whenever they're near it. These mines used to be crawling with pixies. I used to swat them away like bugs, but now I wanted to find one, but there were none. I searched the long sluices where small children used to scoop up mud and pans and search for specks of gold. Most of the sluice boxes were broken and tripped over. I lifted some pieces off the ground, searching, and finally something colorful and sparkly fluttered beneath one of the boxes, a pixie. She was nestled in a nest woven of grass and twigs and flecked with gold. I pulled out my leather gloves, poked her. She squeaked and flew up in the sky out of reach. I picked up a bit of her gold. She shrieked and darted toward me to bite my glove. Digging her fangs into the leather, I dropped the gold, and the pixie snatched it and flew away, this time out of sight. But she had left behind a sizable amount of pixie venom. If she had bitten my bare hand, my fingers would be as large as sausages by now. I took the little vial from the apron pocket and squeezed the venom from the rim. There, that wasn't so difficult. One ingredient found, 2 more to go. I walked along my path toward my honey hive, searching for a good nymph tree. Tree nymphs were like pixies, but with twigs for bodies and leaf wings with the seasons, green in the spring and summer, red and orange in the fall, brittle brown in the winter. They're so well disguised, few know of their existence. Some people swear that trees can speak, but they're really just hearing the tree nymphs trying to tell them something they forgot. Granny says that when we forget something, the tree nymphs sweep up our memories, take care of them until we remember. I must not have forgotten anything important because I never understood a thing from the tree nymphs. They sound like rustling leaves to me. The trick to spotting them is to watch the movement of the leaves when a wind comes. When the wind rushes, all the leaves move, but not the nymphs. They detach from their branches and flutter to other limbs or trees. Through the method, I found some nymphs in an enormous beech tree with low-hanging limbs. I shook some of the branches until the nymphs floated down. I swished the net, but they evaded me. All I caught was regular leaves. I tried again and again, swishing the net as fast as I could, but the nymphs swirled around my head, higher and higher in the tree. I wasn't going to let that stop me. I put the net between my teeth and swung myself up the tree, snagging my skirt in the process. Cursed skirt. I yanked it free and it tore all the way down to my knee. The leaves rustled. I could have sworn the nymphs were laughing at me. I reached for the branch above me and it shook it vigorously, weaving my net as the nymphs detached. Ha! Gotcha! And then I lost my balance and dropped the net. It clattered through the branches and fell to the ground, where my hair got caught in the clump of beechnut burrs. Ah! I growled. I tried to get free, twisting this way and that, but only managed to get more tangled, and of course, with all my thrashing, frightened the nymphs, so they fluttered away up the tree, snickering their secret language that I remained hopelessly stuck. This was not going as smoothly as I planned. A squirrel passed by, collecting nuts. Psst, squirrel, help! I asked, pointing to my hair. There was some tasty nuts beneath all this mess. If you help me out, I said. The squirrel regarded me for a moment and then chattered a lecture about how I got myself into this so I could get myself out of it. Squirrels are selfish creatures, if you ask me. No help at all. I went to work with my hair, ripping the tangles loose from spiny burrs, which prickled and scratched my hands. If I had scissors, I'd just cut my hair off right then and there and be done. I wasn't trying to look special for anyone anyways. With a final yank, I was free. I was also falling. I plummeted headfirst to the ground. I hit branch after branch until the hood of my cloak caught one, saving me just in time. Blessed cloak. I flipped over and hopped to the ground, miraculously in one piece, but without a nymph. Perhaps tree climbing was not the best method for catching him. A wind picked up, and I shivered a little. The tree whispered, or the nymphs, and then my stomach grumbled, shouting me for food. I'd been searching for nymphs and pixies all morning. I knew exactly where I'd go for lunch, my honey hive. My path immediately stretched in a new direction. This one curved and wound in and out of the trees and brush, which got thicker and thicker until it all opened up to a small clearing. A gentle humming grew with each step until it was a full buzzing chorus of thousands of bees, music to my ears. This was my honey hive. This was the place to think and be alone, except I wasn't alone. Snap! There was something near the hive, a brown figure, moving just outside the swarm of bees. Bear, I thought. Bears like honey, but they don't necessarily like little girls. I waited by the tree, listening for the bear to leave. Ooh, ouch, get away! Bears don't talk in squeaky little girl voices either. I peered around the tree, squinting to get a better view. Indeed, there was no bear, but a girl. She was covered herself in brown shawl to serve as a shield from the bees. Curses, I'd much rather face a bear. Chapter 6. Noisy Girl with Golden Curls. The bees swarmed the girl, trying to drive out the intruder. Ouch, she cried. What are you being so mean for? What did I do to you? She backed out of the buzzing mob and pulled the shawl off her head. I knew this girl. She was about my age, maybe a little younger, but I clearly remembered the day her family came to the mountain to mine gold, eager and confident, though none of us understood why. We rarely found gold, and what we did find always went to the king, who gave us little more than survival in return. But then the father had proudly presented his daughter, a petite, dimple-cheeked girl with beautiful golden curls tucked in a frilly cap. This is my daughter Goldie, he said. The rest of the grown-ups scratched their heads, wondering why in the name of the mountain they hadn't thought to give their child that name. It seemed obvious. A girl named Goldie was destined to find gold, and yet this name did not serve their family well, for it wasn't long before the mountain ran dry of gold. We stopped receiving rations from the king, and when the king died, the new queen had no love for gold, and the mines were closed. Everyone left to find other trades and livelihoods, to be farmers, soldiers, or merchants. I thought Goldie and her family had moved away months after all the rest, but here she was, sticking her nose where it was not wanted. I just want a bit of honey, you know. I'm not here to hurt you. She scolded the bees and swatted at them with her brown shawl. I rolled my eyes. Why did everyone think swatting at bees was a good idea? Ouch! She threw up her hands in defeat. Fine, keep your stinking honey. It's probably disgusting anyway. She kicked the dirt at the bees and stomped off. I let out a breath, stepped into the clearing, glad to have it to myself again. I approached the swarm calmly, as light as a feather floating in the gentle breeze. A few bees came and landed on my ears and shoulders and head. I didn't flinch. They didn't sting. I've never been stung, not even when I've taken their honey. Granny says it's because they can feel my magic and it makes them calm, which I find odd since magic makes me so uneasy. I reached into the log and pulled out a lump of honey. Comb, dripping and oozing with honey, and bees, of course. The red cloak was almost completely covered with bees. I stepped away from the hive, waiting until most of the bees flew away, and then I turned and froze. Goldie was back. She stared at me wide-eyed. She had rich brown eyes that stood out against her golden curls, an innocent look that most people probably found sweet, but I was not fooled. I knew the sweetest-looking creature could also be the most vicious, annoying, pixies, for instance. Her gaze shifted to the honey dripping down my hand. She licked her lips. How did you do that? She said. I tried nearly an hour to get some honey, but those bees were beasts. I couldn't even get a foot of the hive. That's because it's not yours, I said. Oh, goodness, is it yours? Mummy is always scolding me for getting into other people's things, but I never suspected a beehive might belong to someone. Does it have your name on it? I thought your family left the mountain, I said, ignoring her questions. We did, only I had to come back because I forgot something important. I'm looking for... How did you find this place? I interrupted. I didn't care a bee's stinger about what she was looking for. Oh, it was easy. I have a knack for finding things that are golden, of course. It's part of my destiny. Which reminds me, I've always wanted to ask you about your destiny, Red. It's a strange name. Everyone says it's evil. They say you're a witch. Are you? Goldie looked eager, like a witch was some kind of exotic animal that she always wanted to see. I shifted uncomfortably. The honey continued to drip over my fingers and down my arm. Goldie eyed it hungrily. Maybe if I gave her some, she'd go away. I held out the dripping honeycomb to her. Here. Oh, how kind of you, Goldie said, taking it and licking it. This is so good. She licked all the honey off her fingers and palms and then ate the comb itself, much like the bear would. Thank you, she said. That was just what I needed. I thought she would leave then, but she didn't. She made herself comfortable on the nearby stump and spread her brown shawl around her. This was my hive and my honey, and I wanted her gone now. You have to go now, I said. Why? Because of the bees. They might try to sting you again. They're not stinging anymore, now that you're here. You must be a bee charmer. Is that part of your destiny? Yes. Now leave or I'll set the bees on you. Goldie's eyes widened, and with interest instead of fear. Can you do that? Can you make them do what you want? Yes, I lied, though I could do no such thing. Goldie licked her fingers and stood up. Show me. Make them do something, but don't set them on me. Make them do something else. I'm not going to make them do anything, I said. But can you? You can, can't you? I rolled my eyes and then had a stroke of genius. I pointed behind Goldie. Bear, I shouted. Goldie whipped her up. Where? It's coming this way. It wants the honey. Run for your life. Goldie shrieked and jumped. She started to run uncomfortably, grabbing my hand to tug me along. Faster, Red, it's going to eat us. What could I do? I had to run from this imaginary bear. We ran for a few minutes, and I pulled Goldie to a stop. It's okay now. I think we went in the other direction. She slumped against a tree. I thought we were going to be eaten, she gasped. There was so many frightful creatures in the woods. Yesterday, I tried to find the witch of the woods, and when I got to her house, there was a wolf. It was wearing a nightdress. Do you think it ate the witch? Ah, so this was the chatty girl who had bothered Granny. I didn't want to draw Goldie into a conversation, but I couldn't help myself. Maybe. What did you want with the witch? A love potion, Goldie sighed. Of course. Goldie had probably fallen in love with a silly boy who didn't like her back, so she ran away from home in search for a love spell. It was a common tale. That always ended badly. You don't want a love spell, I told her. Of course I do. I need it. Magic doesn't turn out the way you expect, I said. What do you mean? I sighed. No one ever considered the consequences. If you were to get a love spell, it might work, but it might not. It might do other things, like the person you loved, make him very sick. Once a girl named Nancy gave a love potion to Hans Jacob, and it made him sick and he couldn't even propose. He was so busy retching. Granny gave him an antidote, which made Nancy furious. I should love for someone to be lovesick over me, sighed Goldie. Or it could make him extremely ugly. Goldie's cheeks twitched, but she stuck out her chin and said, That doesn't matter to me. Mummy says real beauty is from inside. I was not being forceful enough. I needed to think of the worst consequence possible. It came quickly. It could kill the one you love, I said gravely. A spell, especially a strong one like a love spell, can be too much for someone to endure, and they could die. So could you. Oh, Goldie said. Yes, that would be terrible, I thought. I had gotten to her at last, but after a moment she said, But there's a risk in everything, isn't there? And I'd risk everything for love, even death, wouldn't you? I didn't reply. A leaf fluttered in front of me and then swirled away. No, not a leaf, a nymph. I followed it. Where are you going? Said Goldie. Nowhere, I said, keeping my eyes locked on the nymph. It was close. I could see its twiggy legs, the slight fuzz of leaf-like wings, yellow with red tingles of the edges. It's a pretty leaf, said Goldie. Red and gold always look lovely together, don't you think? It's not a leaf, I said. It's a nymph. The nymph landed on the stone and was covered with moss. I moved silently and hovered over the stone. The nymph opened and closed its wings. Great gourd, shouted Goldie, just as I pounced, and the nymph flew away. Did you see that? It was alive. It had legs and eyes. Yes, I said. I told you it's a tree nymph. I've never seen one before, or if I have, I always thought it was a leaf. Did you want it for a pet? No, I need its wings. What for? To make a potion. A potion? What kind of potion? One to give boils to people who get on my nerves, I glared at her. Goldie screwed up her face. That doesn't sound nice as a love potion, but I'll help you catch one. No, thank you, I said, and walked as quickly as possible away. I wound in and out of trees to try to get rid of her, but all that seemed to accomplish was to confuse my path as it tried to anticipate my movements. Goldie skipped right alongside of me. When she got too close to my path, she got a small shock that made her jump and stumble sideways. She batted the air. I think those bees are following me. Where are we going again? I need to catch a tree nymph, I said, hoping she would get the hint that we weren't going anywhere. No such luck. Right, nymphs for boils. Oh, look, there's one, Goldie said, pointing right behind me. That's a leaf, I said. No, it's right by your head. I kept still. I felt wings brushing ever so gently against my cheek, and the nymph crawled right into my hair, right by my ear. It made strange little sounds, a series of clicks, a soft whispering, like the wind through a crack in the door. It was saying something, and I strained to understand it. Don't move, I'll get it. I'm very good at catching grasshoppers. She crouched, ready to pounce. No, don't. Goldie sprang toward me. My path exploded a blast of air so strong that Goldie's frilly cap blew clean off her head and stumbled on her rear. But the blast scared off the nymph, too. Goldie shook herself. Great gourds, what a wind! That came out of nowhere. Did you feel it? I clenched my teeth in my fists. I was taking every ounce of my control not to punch Goldie in the nose. I punched people for lesser offenses. I spun around and started walking fast, but Goldie ran to keep up and chattered away. Don't worry, I'm sure we'll catch another. We just have to keep trying. Mummy always says you should never give up, unless of course you're doing something wrong, in which case you should give up entirely. And it was occurred to me that trying to make a potion to give people boils could be wrong, don't you think? I'm not trying to poison people, I blurted out. I nodded. I need those nymph wings to make a medicine for my granny, who is ill. I trembled with rage, but Goldie mistook it for sadness. Oh, Red, she reached out and took hold of my hands. I'm so sorry. My granny died when I was little, and I cried and cried. I tore my hands out of her grasp and folded my arms. The last thing I wanted was for Goldie to think she understood me. She's not dying, I said, and I never cry. Don't worry, my mummy always knows what to do in these situations. Maybe your mummy would know what to do, too. As much as I didn't want to help advice from Goldie, she had a point. Mama and Papa would know what to do. If I could find a gnome to take them a message, then they'd come home. They could be back by nightfall. I ran through the trees so fast my path could barely keep up with me. I spooked the birds and other creatures who scattered before me, twiddling warnings. Message, I called, message! I shouted as loud as I could into bushes and burrows. They were the most likely places to find gnomes, but like pixies, they had mostly left the mountain. They preferred to live near crowds, where they could deliver lots of messages, but there had to be at least one. I need to send a message, you stupid gnomes! I stomped my foot and punched a tree, which accomplished nothing but hurting my hand. Are you trying to catch a gnome now? I can help. I don't need help, I said. I'm really good at finding gnomes, she said. Good for you. Message, I called again. Message, Goldie echoed. I think we'd do better if we went this way, she said, pointing toward the stream. I nodded. Go ahead, then. Goldie skipped ahead, and I turned and quickly went in the other direction. Oh, look, I found one! I nearly crashed into a tree. To stop myself, I whipped around and ran back. Goldie, where? I asked. There, Goldie said, pointing to the tall grass. I don't see. The grass moved. Then it grunted. A head bobbled above it. Gnome! I lunged forward and snatched the gnome up by the scruff of his neck. The gnome immediately started kicking and grunting, which is a normal behavior for gnomes until you tell them you want them to send a message. Then they calm down and listen. I want to send a message to my parents, Agnes and Thomas. But the gnome did not calm down. Let me go, let me go. He thrashed and flailed his little limbs, and then he bit me. Ouch! I let go and he fell to the ground. There were teeth marks on my pointer finger. Blood dripped down my hand. Never would a gnome bite a person who had wanted to send a message. I looked down at the creature and inspected him more closely. He was slightly bigger than most gnomes, and his features were sharp and shrewd. He had all points, pointy nose, pointy ears, pointy beard. He wore a pointy hat, too, long pointy shoes. He glared at me pointedly with dark, intelligent eyes. This was not the blank stare of a gnome. You're a dwarf, I said, and you're a big, ugly girl. The dwarf kicked me in the shin and ran away. And that takes us to chapter 7, which we will read tomorrow. I hope you have a good evening. Bye.